A couple videos back, I talked about how GM loved to come up with good cars and ideas, and no matter how good they may be, there was always something that would hold it back. The 2013 Cadillac CTS-V is a fantastic car, saddled with a part-spin interior that got laughed at by its German and Japanese contemporaries. Hey, I finally get to talk about Cadillac in their renaissance. You've heard it many times before in the last 15 years. But after years of meddling around with boring front-wheel drive grandpa mobiles in the 80s and 90s, Cadillac finally moved towards a sportier direction and a unique style that actually took on the Germans. While the Alante and the Catera were missteps in their previous attempts to coax buyers away from BMW and Mercedes, it was the introduction of the CTS in 2003 when it became obvious that Cadillac was on the right track. While the first generation CTS hasn't exactly aged the best, the art and science design language was a notable step forward compared to the ho-hum cars of the 90s. Designed by Wayne Cherry and Kip Wasenko, the CTS showed the world that Cadillac had a style that wasn't just, hey, Grandpa, there's a new car for you. It sat on GM's new Sigma rear drive platform, and a new emphasis on performance was capped off with the CTS-V. To bring in the young people, Cadillac realized that it needed an in-house performance brand, similar to BMW's M Division or Mercedes' AMG. V just happened to be a letter in the alphabet that sounded cool, and the name paired well with the Corvette LS6 that was crammed into the engine bay. While a good car for the time, it was still miles away from being a true German fighter. Then came the second generation CTS in 2008, the generation that would proudly put Cadillac back on the map. The art and science design went even bolder. You now got the option of a wagon and a crazy looking coupe, and the V got even zanier. All three body styles were available with all-wheel drive and V versions, on top of manual transmissions being standard equipment. The second generation CTS took the motoring press by storm, winning Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 2008, and the CTS-V earning a spot in Car and Driver's 10 Best list in 2009. The CTS-V is so much more than a sporty appearance package and a big motor. For instance, the V comes standard with magnetic ride control. This technology has been one of GM's big hits in the last couple of decades, as it's really cool stuff. Essentially, the shock dampers are filled with, I'm gonna screw this up, magneto or heliological fluid. I definitely screwed that up. And uses an electromagnetic current to control how stiff each damper needs to be at any given time. Now, that's an extremely dumbed down Wookie version of how it works. But the ECU essentially senses any sort of body roll or bump. It compensates the viscosity of the fluid to try to maintain a smooth ride. As a result, this 8-year-old car with a big V8 under the hood doesn't roll in the corners like you would expect. It stays planted, and the imperfect country roads and downtown streets of Mooresville, North Carolina don't bounce you around like you'd think in a performance car. This is an amazingly smooth ride for such a car. And this smoothness only helps with the performance. Under the hood of the V is the 6.2-liter LSA V8, which produces an impressive 556 horsepower and 551 foot-pounds of torque. This is essentially a slightly detuned version of the LS9 that was found in the C6 Corvette ZR1, and it's still a screaming American pushrod V8 that's unique to the segment. A big ol' supercharger sits on top, and it provides instant boost when you hit that go pedal for maximum glee. The V package also gives you 6-piston Brembo brake calipers in the front and larger brakes in the rear. A mesh grille replaces the original normal egg crate grille, and a mild body kit and massive power bulge and V logos plastered everywhere are your exterior cues that this is special. Inside, you get V logos everywhere, 14-way adjustable Recaro seats in the front, and various goodies such as an LED shift indicator and lateral acceleration gauge. Sitting behind the LSA is either a Tremec TR6060 6-speed manual like in the 5th gen Camaro SS I already tested it a little bit ago, or the 6L90 6-speed auto in this car. Despite being an auto, it does have a manual mode via paddle shifters. To put it plainly, this is a fun car. It's honestly the perfect size for what it is. At this point, the CTS was in a weird position where it was sized in between that of BMW's 3 and 5 Series, but the third generation would finally grow to be a proper 5 Series competitor, and to allow the smaller ATS to slot underneath. Like I said earlier, the magnetic ride control is an amazing thing, even on a now 8-year-old car. I ran over some rougher stuff that truly shakes my Malibu, but I hardly noticed any bumps in the CTS-V. The hydraulic rack and pinion also feel great, as I truly felt that, I repeat this often, but it was smooth yet direct. It was just tuned just right. Really hard to describe in voiceover, but take my word for it. For the little bit that I was allowed to enjoy this car, I felt like I was carving up the North Carolina countryside. It just brought a smile to my face. All of the engineering was working in sync, and the LSA roaring at my heart's content. And unlike the 5th gen Camaro, a tall fat guy like me fits much better in the CTS-V. Yeah, the Recaro seats are a touch narrow in the shoulders, but I had plenty of leg and headroom up front. I was much more comfortable than I was in that Camaro, and I can easily see myself living with this car, which is something I couldn't say about the Camaro. I can wax poetic all day about the fact that this car just made me smile. But I do have to bring up one thing that I teased at the very beginning. It has one major fault, which is something GM always manages to do on these cars. The interior quality. Yep, here's the Wookie beating a dead horse that every automotive journalist enthusiast has said from day one. For something that's aimed squarely at BMW and Mercedes, it doesn't feel like it in its interior materials and quality. Yeah, it has some nicer things than what you would find in a Chevrolet, but sitting in the 2013 CTS-V, all I can think about is that everything that I'd seen in lesser vehicles in GM's lineup at the time. For as special as this car is to drive, it doesn't feel special inside. It honestly just felt like a Chevrolet with just more tech on the inside, which I hate to say, but it does. As I mentioned earlier, I could live with this, as I am a GM stan at heart, but it's a handicap that I know exists with this car in this segment, and I have to bring it up. Anyways, this particular car is a recent purchase of the owner, Jerry, and this generation of CTS-V has been a dream car of his since they were new. He had been a long-time owner of Crown Victorias, and a CTS-V was honestly the natural step up from that life. This particular car has relatively low miles for its age at around 33,600, and it hasn't really been beat on its entire life. He recently had the supercharger replaced under warranty, and his only real complaints at the moment that he was going to need a brake job in the near future. And there's a little clunk in the rear end at low speeds. His only mod right now is a muffler delete, and between that and a future cold air intake so that he can hear the supercharger more, those are his only planned mods. This is his first real nice car, and he honestly plans on keeping it like that for a long time. The 2013 Cadillac CTS-V is honestly everything I could have hoped for. Despite the interior gripes, which classic GM by having one major fault in an otherwise great car, it's everything I honestly expected. It drives great, it sounds amazing, it's comfortable, and it's livable if those things don't bother you. I will sing the praises of the second gen Cadillac CTS-V until the end of time. The 2013 Cadillac CTS-V feeds into that teenage angst of my youth. It's a shockingly angry car with its abundance of sharp angles and boastful V8 engine. Cadillac aimed its brand away from the boomers that had long bought their cars, and stayed aiming towards kids like me that wanted a sporty premium car that wasn't a German car that everyone else was buying. This is that formula done entirely the American way, and I just love it for that. Shouty styling, impressive performance, and the roar of the American V8. It's just a shame that the interior is peak recession GM, but I'll get over it. 2013 Cadillac CTS-V. It's a good car, and I want one. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you once again for watching another episode of Wookie Drives. This week's car comes courtesy of Jerry of Mooresville, North Carolina. Thank you so much for letting me play around with your caddy. If you have a car or truck you'd like to see on the show and you happen to be in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, feel free to message the official email at wookiedrives@gmail.com. Follow the official Facebook page for official channel updates, and check out my Twitter and Instagram at WookieAutomoTV for more Wookie shenanigans. Be sure to hit that like button, drop a comment below with some feedback, share with all your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more Wookie Drives like these. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night.
What can you do with 7 minutes, 59 seconds, and 32 100ths? Maybe walk your dog around the block. Or read a couple of columns on the op-ed page. Even shine and buff a pair of wingtips. Or you could silence every skeptic on the planet by blistering through a 13-mile lap at Germany's famed Nürburgring. Inspired and humbled by all the great cars that came before us, like the BMW M5. And the Mercedes-Benz E63. We didn't see this time as something to cherish, but more a starting line from which to keep pushing. The CTS-V, the world's fastest production sedan. Cadillac. The new standard of the world.